The recent history of Ethiopia's Tigray region is etched with profound sorrow and immense human suffering. From November 2020 to November 2022, a devastating civil war engulfed the area, pitting the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, against the Ethiopian federal government and its allies. This brutal conflict resulted in an almost unimaginable toll, with estimates suggesting up to 600,000 lives lost due to fighting, starvation, and lack of medical care. Millions more were forcibly displaced from their homes, their communities shattered and their livelihoods destroyed, leaving deep scars that continue to affect the population today, creating a fragile foundation for any lasting peace. In the aftermath of such widespread devastation, the signing of the Pretoria Agreement in November 2022 was greeted with a collective sigh of relief, both within Ethiopia and across the international community. This landmark accord was designed to silence the guns and pave the way for a more stable future. Its primary objectives were comprehensive: to ensure a permanent cessation of hostilities, to facilitate unhindered humanitarian access to all those in need, to oversee the disarmament of TPLF fighters, and to establish an interim regional administration in Tigray. The agreement represented a critical opportunity to begin the long and arduous process of healing and rebuilding trust. However, as we find ourselves in May 2025, the optimism that accompanied the Pretoria Agreement is being severely tested by new and deeply concerning developments. Reports have been steadily emerging, primarily since April 2025, alleging that the Ethiopian federal government is imposing severe restrictions on essential supplies reaching Tigray. These allegations paint a grim picture of a region once again facing immense hardship. The claims specifically point towards a deliberate effort to limit the flow of fuel and other crucial goods, raising fears of an economic blockade designed to exert pressure on the region and its leadership, potentially undermining the spirit of the peace deal. These reported restrictive measures are said to be manifesting in various disruptive ways, significantly impacting the daily lives of ordinary Tigrayan citizens. There are accounts of a stringent fuel embargo, which cripples transportation and essential services dependent on it. Furthermore, social media and news outlets have carried stories of commercial supply trucks laden with vital commodities including food items, being detained for extended periods in the neighboring Afar and Amhara regions while en route to Tigray. Such delays mean that perishable goods spoil, exacerbating food shortages and driving up prices for the scarce resources that do make it through, creating a desperate situation for many families. The direct consequences of these alleged blockades and fuel shortages are being felt most acutely in Tigray's already fragile essential services. Hospitals, which struggled immensely during the war, are reportedly facing collapse once more. Without adequate fuel, ambulances are grounded, preventing them from reaching patients in remote areas or transferring critical cases. The transportation of vital medicines and medical supplies has become a logistical nightmare, severely hampering the ability of healthcare professionals to provide even basic care. Aid organizations, crucial for delivering life-saving assistance, also find their operations severely curtailed, unable to reach vulnerable populations effectively and consistently. This situation is rapidly reversing hard-won gains in humanitarian access. The broader humanitarian impact on the Tigrayan population is equally alarming, pushing many towards a precipice of renewed suffering. Reports indicate a sharp rise in food insecurity across the region, with the scarcity of goods leading to soaring prices for basic necessities, placing them beyond the reach of countless families already impoverished by years of conflict. Small businesses, the backbone of local economies, are paralyzed by the lack of fuel and raw materials, further diminishing opportunities for income and self-sufficiency. There are grave concerns that if these restrictions persist, the region could face a deepening crisis, potentially leading to widespread hunger and further displacement, echoing the darkest days of the recent war. From the perspective of Tigrayan leaders and activists, these developments are viewed as a direct assault on the Pretoria Agreement and the well-being of their people. They have been vocal in their demands for a clear explanation from the federal government regarding the alleged detention of commercial trucks and the crippling fuel embargo. They argue that such actions constitute a form of economic warfare and fundamentally violate the terms of the peace deal, which explicitly guaranteed unhindered humanitarian and commercial access to Tigray. The frustration and anger within the region are palpable, as they see these measures as a betrayal of the commitments made to restore normalcy. Compounding these economic pressures is a complex and evolving political landscape. The federal government, while remaining largely silent on the specific allegations of a goods blockade, has taken other significant actions. In May 2025, the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia, or NEBI, officially revoked the TPLF's legal status as a political party, a move the TPLF condemned as a severe threat to the Pretoria Agreement and Tigray's political autonomy. This delisting followed a period of internal crisis within the TPLF itself, with reported divisions between military and political figures, and even a temporary ousting of the interim president Getachew Reda in March 2025 before Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed appointed Tadesse Wareda as a new interim president in April, aiming to stabilize the volatile situation. The combination of alleged blockades, political maneuvering, and the painful memories of recent conflict has inevitably fueled fears of a return to open hostilities in Tigray. Adding to this anxiety are unverified but troubling reports circulating on social media and in some news outlets. These reports claim that the federal government is actively involved in training former Tigray Defense Force defectors in the neighboring Afar region. There are also claims of collaboration with Amhara regional forces to assemble a new militia with the alleged intent of launching attacks into Tigray, a prospect that sends shivers down the spines of those who endured the last war. The security situation is further complicated by persistent and significant tensions with neighboring Eritrea, which played a major role alongside Ethiopian federal forces during the 2020 to 2022 war. In March 2025, Ethiopia reportedly deployed additional troops towards its border with Eritrea amidst fears of a potential conflict following reports of Eritrean military mobilization. Eritrea continues to maintain a military presence in certain parts of Tigray, a contentious issue that directly contravenes the spirit, if not the letter, of the Pretoria Agreement, and serves as a constant source of instability and apprehension for the local population. The roots of the current friction between Ethiopia and Eritrea are multifaceted and deeply entrenched, extending beyond the immediate Tigrayan context. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government has openly pursued access to a Red Sea port, a strategic ambition that has caused unease in Asmara and other regional capitals. Conversely, Eritrea has been accused of supporting anti-Abiy forces within Ethiopia, particularly in the Amhara region, as part of a broader effort to exert influence and destabilize its larger neighbor. These geopolitical power plays create a highly volatile environment, where miscalculations or deliberate provocations could easily escalate, dragging Tigray back into a wider conflict. Moreover, the Ethiopian National Defense Force, or ENDF, is currently stretched thin due to ongoing internal conflicts in other parts of the country, most notably in the Amhara and Oromia regions. These protracted insurgencies demand significant military resources and attention from the federal government. While this might, on one hand, limit the ENDF's capacity to engage in another full-scale war in Tigray, it also paradoxically increases its potential reliance on regional militias and allied forces. Such reliance can be a double-edged sword, as these groups often have their own agendas and can contribute to further fragmentation and localized violence, making a comprehensive peace even harder to achieve. Looking ahead, the future of Tigray hangs precariously in the balance, with several distinct scenarios appearing possible, each carrying profound implications for its people and the wider Horn of Africa region. One of the more optimistic, though challenging paths involves de-escalation through sustained and meaningful dialogue. This could potentially be facilitated by neutral international actors such as the African Union, which played a key role in brokering the Pretoria Agreement. However, significant obstacles remain, including the deep-seated mistrust between parties, the unresolved issue of disputed territories like Western Tigray, the TPLF's internal divisions, and the ever-present influence of Eritrea. A more concerning and unfortunately high-risk scenario is an escalation into localized, albeit not full-scale conflict. If the alleged blockades persist and the reported mobilization of militias continues unchecked, the likelihood of violent clashes increases substantially. Such a development would undoubtedly worsen the already dire humanitarian crisis, leading to further displacement and suffering. It could also risk drawing in Amhara regional forces or even Eritrean troops more overtly, potentially unraveling the fragile peace established by the Pretoria Agreement and reigniting a cycle of violence that benefits no one in the long run. The humanitarian consequences would once again be catastrophic. there also remains a low yet deeply troubling possibility of a broader regional war, particularly one involving Eritrea. While Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has publicly stated his desire to avoid war with Asmara, the underlying tensions related to Red Sea access and regional power dynamics persist. A miscalculation or an intentional provocation could spark a much larger conflagration, one that would have devastating humanitarian consequences across the entire Horn of Africa, destabilizing an already fragile part of the world. Alternatively, the region might face a continued status quo, a protracted period of economic isolation and restricted access for Tigray, leading to a slow but steady deterioration of humanitarian conditions, further eroding trust and fueling resentment. In this complex and fluid situation, access to accurate, verified, and balanced information is more critical than ever. Understanding the nuances of the political dynamics, the reality of the humanitarian situation on the ground, and the perspectives of all involved parties is essential for anyone seeking to grasp what is truly happening in Tigray. The international community, regional bodies, and ordinary citizens must remain vigilant and informed. The lessons from the devastating 2020 to 2022 conflict, particularly regarding the slow international response to conflict-induced hunger, underscore the urgent need for proactive engagement to prevent a recurrence of mass suffering. For more updates and in-depth analysis, please consider following reputable news sources and institutional reports for ongoing developments.